You're watching Rogers TV.
Hello there, and welcome to the local campaign here on Rogers TV. My name is Mike Farwell, and I will be your moderator for this candidates forum that features the candidates running for Mayor of Cambridge. We are also pleased that Citizens for Cambridge is one of our partners on this forum here today. We have two candidates running for Mayor of Cambridge that are in studio with us today. They will each be afforded 2 minutes for opening statements. Then we will have a series of questions and answers led by yours truly. And then our candidates will again have 2 minutes to make a closing statement. So with no further ado from me, let's introduce to you our candidates with us in studio, Cody Botello and Catherine McGarry. Thank you both for being here, and let's begin with your opening statements. Mr. Botello, you will begin.
Oh, okay, great. Good evening. My name is Cody Botello, and I'm running to be the Mayor of Cambridge. I'm here tonight because I believe I'm the best candidate for the job. I've lived in Cambridge my entire life, and I'm here because I think the people of Cambridge deserve transparency from their elected officials. I'm here because Cambridge deserves a mayor that won't get emotional and storm out of council meetings and fail to vote on the issues that matter the most to the people of Cambridge. I'm here because in the year 2020, when the people were struggling the most, our mayor had over $31,000 in miscellaneous expenses and allowances. That equals about $600 a week. That's on top of regular pay. Pardon me. And I would also like to know, but I'll find out in the 2022 budget, if the taxpayers picked up the check for our mayor's recent trip to Ottawa to meet the Prime Minister and the new German Chancellor. That's all I got.
Thank you very much, Mr. Botello. And Ms. McGarry, 2 minutes for an opening statement.
Hello and good evening, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to listen in this evening. 4 years ago, I ran for mayor because Cambridge residents were looking for a new kind of leadership. As your mayor, I've been a solutions-oriented decision maker, working collaboratively with families, businesses, community leaders, and colleagues from all 4 levels of government. I grew up wanting to help people and became a nurse. In caring for babies at sick kids, I learned how to advocate for little ones who had no voice. I learned the art of building trusting relationships with others to provide the best care for each wee patient. My family and I moved to Cambridge 34 years ago, and I continued my career in nursing. But in 2014, I was elected as the MPP for Cambridge and used my transferable skills. Politics is about relationships, collaborating with others to find solutions to issues, and build our community to be the best place to play, live, and work. I believe that my role is to be a voice for those who ask me to speak for them, but I also speak for those who have no voice in making decisions for the best outcomes for Cambridge. We have made so many gains over the last 4 years. We've started breaking ground on new and expanding recreation facilities, such as the soccer fields and the Cambridge Recreation Complex. We've partnered with others to build more affordable and attainable housing. And I've led council to add more jobs and businesses, increasing the city's revenue so there's more resources to help the complex social issues such as homelessness, mental health and addictions issues that most cities are struggling with. We're improving community safety by supporting the work of our police, adding cameras in the Preston Core, and lowered speed limits in front of all schools. A connected community is a safer community. My vision is to create an affordable, prosperous, and connected Cambridge with new, fun activities so families can play together. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. McGarry. Opening statements are out of the way. We'll now move into the question and answer portion of our forum. And while I don't want to presuppose any outcomes, I think it may be necessary to issue the reminder that at the discretion of the moderator, that would be me, there would be opportunity for rebuttal if something is mentioned about the other candidate. We'll see how our time together goes. Let's begin with the questions and answers. And Ms. McGarry, you will have 2 minutes on the answer to this first question, which will be around homelessness. We know that when it comes to social housing, it is something that our regional government oversees here in our community. But should you be successful in this mayoral race, you would automatically have a seat on regional council and obviously a voice in how we go about tackling homelessness in our community. Not to mention, of course, Cambridge, like other cities in our region, does see homeless encampments. Ms. McGarry, what is your approach to tackling homelessness?
Thank you, and it's important to note that all communities right now are facing an increase in homelessness. It's a complex and complicated issue that is not a silver bullet solutioned issue. So in the last 4 years, as we've seen this problem evolve, we've noted that there are many different layers that have caused the increase. It's a layer of the pandemic, people losing jobs, more mental health and addictions issues, and most recently the cost of living and the affordability of housing has escalated dramatically. So that's a layered issue. In Cambridge, we are not responsible for housing or the social services, but we work very, very closely with the region of Waterloo, the provincial and federal governments in order to find the best solutions that we can for this issue. Homelessness right now is an issue where most people that are struggling with things are not able to find homes and are often very vulnerable out in the community. I was part of a regional government that has now just fast-tracked a homelessness plan to try and tackle some of the complex issues. We're building more affordable and attainable housing. In Cambridge, we have put more housing, affordable housing in at the moment. We're working with partners such as Habitat for Humanity and Indwell, as well as the region and provincial and federal governments to add more housing units. The only way to bring down the cost of housing is to ensure that we are building more, and Cambridge City Council have done those decisions, and we're seeing much more houses being built. Supported units are important to ensure that all those that are vulnerable seeking a home over their roof over their heads has the necessary supports in order to continue to retain their housing.
Thank you very much, Ms. McGarry. And Mr. Botello, how would you approach the homelessness issue?
Well, I think one of the biggest problems is with property rights, trespassing and with encampments, fires. So I think in the short term, before we can find these people houses, we should move these 10 encampments to the City Hall. If you have to walk by it every day, it's going to be a lot more motivation to actually try and deal with the issue, rather than have it hidden away. But we also need to deal with bylaw infractions in these encampments. I walked by the encampment by Manchester School today, and there was clearly a fire. The scamp's been reported multiple times, but there's nothing done about it. And I think we need to remove these encampments from private property, put them on public land. It's the public's to use, and they should be free to go there. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much for those responses. We're going to stay in this same area and move from homelessness to affordable housing. Mr. Botello, I will begin with you on this. As Mayor of Cambridge, how would you help to create more affordable housing for the community?
Well, if you want more affordable housing, you need more housing. And one of the biggest issues is all the red tape going into building anything. You have to have survey after survey, and that just slows things down. It can cost upwards of hundreds of thousands of dollars before you even pour a foundation. So if you want to build more housing and make it more affordable, we need to get out there and build more. And we need to cut down bureaucratic red tape. Thanks.
Thank you very much. And Ms. McGarry, on making more affordable housing available in Cambridge.
Thank you. In order to build more affordable housing, we need to partner with other organizations and levels of government in order to create that plan to build more. We've been very creative at the City of Cambridge over the last 4 years with my leadership, and we've partnered to ensure we've got new affordable and supported units now going up on 195 Hesper Road. We partnered with the region to add 6 more units for seniors in Hespeler area, and we've recently broken ground on Habitat for Humanity on Shantz Hill in order to provide another 20 units or so for families there. We've been working closely with other organizations such as Indwell in order to assist them in finding property and support them as they're building more affordable units and supports to keep people there. This is a complicated issue, and we should not be paying for housing through property taxes. Ontario is the only one or two provinces in Canada who has to provide social supports such as supportive housing, affordable housing, through their property taxes and not through the provincial government. We need to continue to advocate at upper levels of government to provide the level of support that we need. We've also taken a creative approach, identified vacant property in the city of Cambridge that's either city or region owned, and have a plan to try and move forward to see if affordable housing can be built on that area. We've taken advantage of some of the Rapid Housing Initiative money in order to be able to continue to do that. And the City of Cambridge, under my leadership, partnered with the University of Waterloo School of Architecture to create a tiny home, and we're hoping to be able to utilize that in order to put more roofs over more people's head. It's important to note that everybody in our community deserves a roof over their head.
Thank you very much for those responses. Moving on to our next question. It's been alluded to already in our first couple of responses, but that is issues like homelessness and affordable housing require the support of upper levels of government. That could be a regional government, the province, the federal government as well. Ms. McGarry, to you first on this question. As Mayor of Cambridge, how would you advocate for more supports for Cambridge with upper levels of government?
That's a great question, Mike, and it's important to note that I have now sat at 3 out of the 4 levels of government. Not only was I elected as the MPP for Cambridge for 4 years, but I also sat at the cabinet table and was the regional minister. So I certainly know my way about big government, and I've ensured that I've retained those relationships. I've also made strong relationships and ensured that Cambridge is at the table when these decisions are being made or when policy discussions are underway about the types of things that people need. Not only do I advocate to the region, the province, and the federal government as the Mayor of Cambridge, but also as a regional councillor, and as well as through my close work with the Ontario's big city mayors, who actually represent about 70% of the population of Ontario. And the top issue for the big city mayors has been the affordability, the homelessness, the mental health and addictions crisis, and the fact that we need more supports in all of our communities in order to be resolving these complex issues. I made sure that I was at the province for the Association of Municipality of Ontario conference in August. We were also at the Federation of Canadian Municipalities for the federal government across the country in June, and I've joined those groups virtually for the last 2 years. Anytime we have the opportunity to speak to a minister about any of these issues that we need support for, I'm there advocating. I've maintained very excellent relationships with my former colleagues in Queen's Park, and I continue to work with others in order to collaborate on and advocate for the things that we need.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Botello, on how you, as Mayor of Cambridge, would advocate with upper levels of government.
Well, I don't think that's very hard to do at all. I think that our MPP and our MP understand that we need to move forward on this and we need to make housing more affordable. I think it's just a matter of having a conversation with them to bring our concerns to Queen's Park and to Ottawa. Thanks.
Okay, moving on to our next question, and this is something that has been a bit of a lightning rod in Cambridge for the last number of years. That is a consumption and treatment services site to deal with addiction that we often see very visibly on our streets. Mr. Botello, I will ask you this question first, or ask for your response first. Does the City of Cambridge need a CTS, consumption and treatment services site?
I don't think we need a consumption site, and I think that the response from the survey that was sent out, where over 70% of people said that they didn't want a site in town, is very telling. And one of the things that you need to have an injection site or a consumption site is the support of the community. And I don't think 30% means that you have community support. And I think the way that 150 Main Street was recommended is despicable. It was kept off the agenda. It was talked about behind closed doors. So I don't think that we should have that in our community, and I don't think that enabling addiction is a solution. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Before your response, Ms. McGarry, would you like to talk about the process that brought 150 Main Street as the preferred site before we get your full response?
Thank you. I'd like to do that because the decision to endorse the potential CTS site at 150 Main Street was through our procedural bylaws that were completely followed. The clerk of our council meetings ensures that all rules are followed. There were no closed doors meetings. There were certainly conversations between individual council members, and once the two councillors put it on the table, the council was able to vote for or against it in open council.
Thank you very much for that. And then to the matter of the CTS site, is this an important facility for Cambridge to have?
Thank you, and it's a very good question. And interestingly, I was speaking to a former member of our public health of the regional council today. And what she told me was that in 2017, when the opioid crisis overwhelmed our communities, Cambridge being among them, there was a lot of conversation between our public health departments and our Ministry of Health in Ontario as to what to do to try and resolve some of these issues. Certainly with any overdose, we need the services of our first responders. It takes them out of service to be able to manage them. There's a lot of death and just hurt for some of these vulnerable people and their families that have to experience this. And I do feel sorry for the families that have lost so many communities members over the last years. But what I heard was that this was a clinical, evidence-based decision on how to move ahead in the province with supporting a harm reduction site in order to create a place where people that are using can come in for care and get their needs hopefully met further than that. It is a mandated service or set of services with a set criteria that establishes a consumption and treatment site in the middle of the area of need, and it has consistently been shown that the area of need is in downtown Galt, mostly around the 150 Main site. This is not a magic silver bullet. It's not for everybody, but it's important to keep people alive long enough for them to build that trusting relationship, move ahead with having services offered to them, and have the advice of experts who can weigh in and keep them alive until they can get to that treatment area. That's why a CTS is needed in the city of Cambridge. We've lost far too many people, and it just has to stop.
Thank you very much for those responses. I'm going to ask a follow-up question on the CTS site, and Ms. McGarry, you will be the first with the opportunity to respond. If indeed it is that important to follow through with this public health initiative, a CTS site, to support those who are addicted, how do you balance those needs and the needs of those families with the needs of businesses in downtown Galt?
That's a very good question, and that's one of the reasons the provincial government has mandated certain criteria to be met with any establishing of a consumption and treatment services site in any given location. It's important to note that the City of Cambridge's only role was to endorse a potential site, but it also meant that any potential operator could come along and choose another site and then go through the process. In the mandated services, it has a great deal of focus on safety around the issues. So when the consumption treatment services site was established both in Guelph and in Kitchener, there is a plan there where safety is first and foremost, and staff sweep the area to ensure that there's no needle litter in the areas. It means that they have established at least a monthly, if not a bi-monthly, set of meetings in order to meet with all of the stakeholders within a certain area. So in Kitchener's instance, they have a school, a church right beside them, the community members, and a number of different business owners that sat on the committee to discuss any issues that came up. And there were so few issues that they're meeting much less often. The local businesses have found far fewer people loitering, and there's far fewer cases of people publicly using out in the community. In our downtown core, I know that our police and first responders have talked to business owners and said that those folks that are now using outside will now be inside with a supervised treatment program. Far fewer calls, if any, go to first responders for Kitchener's CTS site, which means those individuals, such as police and ambulance, can be on the road assisting the next call. So for area businesses, the police tell us, and we see evidence, it'll be much safer in the long run with a CTS site established in the downtown core.
Thank you very much, Mr. Botello. How would you balance the needs of businesses in the downtown core of Galt with a CTS site in the vicinity?
Well, I think our option is to not allow this to happen. If you look at the statistics from the Kitchener site, overwhelming majority of people don't use it there. They just go to pick up their equipment and then leave. And it clearly fails to meet the criteria of community supports. You can't say that the community supports it when 70% of people say they don't want it. And it's the government's job to work for the will of the people, not just what they think is the best for everybody, but you actually have to do what the people insist that you do. That's your job as somebody that holds office or in a position of authority. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Ms. McGarry, rebuttal?
I did want to just respond to the comment that people pick up their drugs and leave. The consumption and treatment services are there just to watch people use the drugs that they bring in themselves. This is not a place where they pick up the drugs or have it provided in the consumption and treatment services portion. And it is, again, a place where they can also access treatments inside.
Mr. Botello, would you like to cite the source for your information?
Well, I wanted to say that I'm not saying that they're going in there to pick up drugs. I'm saying they're going to go pick up equipment like needles and stuff like that.
But the idea is that it is a supervised site where then they use those drugs.
Yeah, but they don't have to use them there. They can just pick it up and leave.
Okay. All right, we'll move on to growth in our community. We understand through recent data that the region of Waterloo as a whole will grow by about 50% in the next 30 years, or approximately 300,000 new people. Many of those people, of course, will move to the region's second largest municipality, which of course would be the city of Cambridge. Mr. Botello, I will begin with you on this question, and that is your vision. What is your vision for how Cambridge would manage this growth?
Well, I think it's a staggering amount of growth, and what we need to consider is how we're going to deal with the massive influx of traffic and build enough homes to house all the new people that are coming in. So we need to build more, and we need to deal with detailed traffic studies, because we can't afford to make our downtown cores any more congested than they are. Thanks.
Thank you very much. And Ms. McGarry, your vision for managing the growth that is coming to the city of Cambridge?
Growth is happening because Cambridge is one of the best places to live in the country. And Waterloo region, including Cambridge, is one of the top 2 fastest growing areas. Not only do we have a beautiful city with rivers running through it, but we're close to a major international airport as well as a major international border. And we've also got one of the biggest IT sectors from Waterloo to Toronto corridor. So I'm not surprised at all that we're growing in leaps and bounds, but it needs to be managed growth. So we have had a plan not only in Cambridge, but also the region, in order to ensure that our traffic networks, our transportation networks, are being built now for the way of the future. The Phase 2 light rail transit is coming to Cambridge. We're underway right now with the detailed planning of such a higher order transit system, and we're still advocating to Metrolinx to ensure that we get a link to the GO train between Cambridge and Guelph in order to ensure good transportation network. Cambridge has also supported seeing the growth in our international airport at Waterloo Wellington in order to manage some of the businesses. But the growth in our residential and business areas, especially in our downtown cores, needs to be managed very well. So we have ensured that we have been working strongly with the region to identify employment lands in identified areas where we can intensify some of the density that we need for housing in order to provide the business case for our higher order transit, and also for our businesses so that they can set up shop and have a prosperous place to be. All of this is managed through our official plan. All of it is managed with community consultation, and we'll continue to retain the heritage downtown cores by putting in an intensity where we can without disturbing our heritage districts.
Thank you very much. With more people, obviously, and as has been noted, comes more traffic. More traffic means less space on the roads for all users. Ms. McGarry, I will start with you on this question around how we keep our streets safe when we have so much growth. What is your best approach to road safety?
Road safety is one of the key things that all municipal councillors and mayors are contacted about. And when we did town halls throughout all 8 wards early in my tenure, road safety kept coming up as one of the top issues. It's not enough to sort of slow down and be careful driving through your own residences without speeding through others. We've already identified a master traffic plan for the next few years, as well as a master active transportation and cycling plan in order to try and take advantage of more active transportation. It's why we are adding the Phase 2 LRT into our downtown core area, so that will reduce the number of car trips that we need. We've also continued to work with upper levels of government to expand roadways such as the 401 through Cambridge to ensure that we have more capacity on those roads. Every driver that's on the road needs to take the responsibility to follow the road safety signs and the posted signs. Not only do we have now an automatic speed enforcement camera program in Cambridge, where those cameras are outside schools, I brought a motion forward and it was passed at Regional Council to ensure that speed zones in front of all schools are reduced. We continue to educate our public to keep our children safe, to keep our areas safe, and we've also reduced the speed limits in 3 pilot projects in Cambridge to 40 kilometers an hour, and we'll continue to look to potential reduction of speed limits throughout our entire residential area. As we grow and build, traffic studies and our roadways are top of mind with any new development, whether it's industrial, commercial, or residential, and we're continuing to see some of the areas such as the McQueen-Shaver Boulevard expand along our southern border, and eventually with an eastern side bypass through the city to the 401 should relieve a lot of the truck traffic in the downtown core.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Botello, what is your vision to keep streets safe in the city of Cambridge?
Well, one of the things we need to do is develop our infrastructure. There's too many streets in Cambridge that have no sidewalks. That puts pedestrians at risk, that puts drivers at risk. So we need to develop that infrastructure. But I don't think the LRT is going to be a solution, particularly in the short term, because it won't be finished before 2030. So really we just need to focus on infrastructure development. That can help keep people safe and also educate, especially with all the new roundabouts, the appropriate driving and that. Because I know a lot of people don't stop at the appropriate space when they're coming to a roundabout, and that could lead to many traffic fatalities. So we need to educate and build infrastructure. Thanks.
Thank you very much for those responses on infrastructure, but going from roads and to trails and cycling infrastructure specifically. This is something that we've heard a lot about when it comes to a municipality's ability to battle climate change, for example. We are told that the war against climate change will be fought in our cities. Mr. Botello, I'll begin with you. Does the city of Cambridge currently have adequate cycling infrastructure?
Well, I don't think it does at all, but how are we going to build it? Are we going to expand our roads even more? I think that's probably the best solution, because we can't afford to take out traffic lanes. We already have enough traffic. It was during the pandemic, when there was lane reductions and cycling lanes opened, that didn't work out too well. That slowed down traffic. I support people riding bicycles, but if we're going to build that infrastructure, it should be between the sidewalk and the road, and not cut down on the already little road space that we have. Thank you.
Ms. McGarry, on cycling infrastructure, is it adequate currently, or what might you like to see change?
Thank you, and I'm certainly a strong advocate for safer cycling and more cycling in the city of Cambridge. As a matter of fact, when I was the Minister of Transportation, I held the cycling strategy for the province of Ontario in my file, and I was able to ensure that Cambridge got a part of the $125 million that I was able to allocate across the province in order to create more safe cycling infrastructure. Do we have enough? Absolutely not. And that's one of the reasons we have a 20-year master cycling plan. We listen very carefully to our cycling advisory committee, who is helping to fill in the blanks with all of the networks, so that we can have an integrated network of cycling throughout our city that does connect with other areas and other geographies around us. Currently, we do have a lot of cyclists coming in from Guelph, for instance, along the northern area, and the Mill Run Trail has recently seen an investment by the City of Cambridge to replace one of the bridges and open one of our favorite cycling paths. On the Franklin Boulevard Bridge, I advocated strongly for separated active transportation routes over that bridge, and I was able to upload that cost from the region to the province. And the same cycling facility is now being built on the Hespeler Road over the 401 in order to separate the cycling lanes and pedestrian lanes from the traffic. We need to continue that plan, and there is a plan in place in order to continue to adding to that network. We need more bike parking, and we're making sure that every development, every residential area has space for bike parking. We're looking for more dedicated and locked up bike areas for our cyclists, and I like the complete street model. So our new streets are looking to accommodate all forms of transportation on every road that's built in the beginning. And the last thing I'll say is that I spoke with the student transportation person today, and we're continuing to work on safe and active routes to school and encouraging our schools to take that up.
Thank you very much. We're going to stay in a similar theme here, from cycling infrastructure to transit. And light rail transit phase 2 of LRT has been mentioned a couple of times already during this forum. Ms. McGarry, I will begin with you. As we know, it's close to a decade away still before phase 2 of light rail transit is coming into the city of Cambridge. Has Cambridge been left behind, and what will you do to ensure that light rail remains on track?
That's a good question, and I remember the debates very, very well between the region and the City of Cambridge that the whole LRT system in the Waterloo region should have built all at once. However, we are in phase 2 and looking forward to that. And when we got on the first LRT train in Kitchener Station, I always remember the Tom Galloway saying, "Onward to Cambridge" for phase 2. So it's certainly going ahead. We have been in a lot of planning situations. A lot of citizens had excellent input, and so I think we've made a better plan for our LRT because of the citizens' involvement, and so we're taking advantage of some of the rail network that's already still within Cambridge. So we're working away on that. Any properties that need to be expropriated are on a list right now, so if those properties are coming up to be sold. The region's starting to pick those up, and expropriating property and making sure that we're taking the least amount possible is really important. So we are continuing to watch that in Cambridge. And so this is a long-term venture for us all. The higher order transit is being built for our children and grandchildren so that they, especially our millennial generation, have an active transportation route where they don't need to have a car. It's better for the environment, and it's also better to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions. So we're continuing to support that work in LRT Phase 2, and at the moment we're just trying to get the terminus correctly, so at some point you will be able to get on, if you're a School of Architecture student, at the bottom end of Cambridge and go right into the University of Waterloo. This is the way of the future. It's better for our environment, it's better for our air, our clean air to breathe, and it's certainly the way of the future to reduce the traffic on our roads. So we're excited to continue to work together to find the funding now for LRT.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Botello, has Cambridge been left behind, and how will you ensure that Phase 2 of LRT remains on track?
Well, we certainly have been left behind. I mean, we had to kick in a bunch of the money. Well, I mean, Cambridge had to kick in a bunch of the money to build the train for Kitchener and Waterloo. And what we got was a bus. And that's what we're going to have for the next decade. So I think that if we paid for that much of the LRT, it should come here, and it should come here sooner. And we need to accelerate plans to do that. I'm not entirely certain how we'll do that, but I am committed to it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Among the issues that are certainly top of mind for many people watching this forum today would be the increasing cost of living. They see it when they go to the grocery store, they see it when they fill up their vehicles with gasoline, and we talk all the time about inflation. Understanding that these are forces often well beyond a municipality's control. Mr. Botello, I'll start with you. Is there any realistic relief that you as a mayor could offer residents of Cambridge on some affordability?
Well, it's mostly a federal issue, but I think what we can do in terms of your municipality is to limit or not increase property taxes year on year. And I think that's really one of the only practical solutions we can do locally, because we can't control how much money printed by the Bank of Canada. So really the only thing we can do is manage our finances responsibly. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Ms. McGarry, as a municipal mayor, is there any realistic relief for affordability that you can offer residents of Cambridge?
Thank you. And it's a very complicated issue around cost of living, and certainly there's a lot of different factors. We've all witnessed what has happened to the supply chain during the pandemic, and we're also weren't expecting the situation in Ukraine. That has certainly affected some of the oil and gas exports, as well as grain and exports of food throughout that area. But there certainly are a few things that we can do to help the affordability in the city of Cambridge. And the most obvious one to me is something I'm very proud of. We merged our electricity distributor, which gives us an annual dividend, formerly known as Energy Plus, with Brantford Power. And this merger closed on May 2nd of this year. What that does is it's stabilizing and keeping the rates same for electricity for a decade, for the next 10 years. So whatever you're paying today is not going to increase for 10 whole years. That is something significant that we have done in order to be able to manage the affordability. Some of the other things that we're doing is ensuring that we have city revenue coming in to assist with our property taxes, so that when we've got enough revenue coming in, the property taxes aren't needed to be put up in order to invest in our community. One of the ways we've done that is we've delivered on jobs and new businesses in our area straight through the pandemic. And I can tell you that Cambridge is actually better set coming out of the pandemic economically than others. So what we're trying to do is ensure that we are bringing in more jobs and prosperity, making sure that we can then reinvest the money that we get from that tax revenue into the services in Cambridge. I will end with the fact is Cambridge is one of the most lean, efficient communities in the entire province. And we're going to continue to work to help people with the affordable issues that they have.
Thank you very much for those responses. As we move into this question, I'll remind you again that mayor who is elected in our municipality automatically gets a seat at the regional council table. It is our regional council that is responsible for the police budget. The police budget is, in fact, the largest line item within that overall regional budget. Ms. McGarry, I will begin with you. As a mayor who would have a seat at regional council, would you advocate for a reduction in what we spend on police funding?
That's a very excellent question, and it's certainly one that's debated, as the police budget is the largest ticket item that we see in our work as regional council. I know for sure that the world is changing, and we've heard the pleas of our police officers that are frontline, that the world has changed in a way that we need more frontline officers, but we also need to not strip out the investigation units that are doing some of the behind the scenes work in order to be able to catch the criminals. We have also seen a change in the community. Police have told me that people used to brandish a weapon during a crime in progress, and now they're using it more often. We're along the 401. We've seen a huge increase in the opioid crisis and drug culture coming into our community, and there's huge demand for road safety calls as well. And not to mention all the hundreds of calls they get for overdoses a year. I do support the police budget the way it is. I think we hadn't increased it enough while this community is growing. We're going to see that we need far more frontline officers throughout the community. And in saying that, we also need to continue that investment from the social services from the province in order to provide mental health workers at every call that comes in for mental health crisis, which is huge right now. And we need a consumption and treatment site to reduce the number of calls for service that the police get for potential overdoses. I'm going to continue to support the police budget as much as it's needed right now, because the people in Cambridge are asking for more police. There are dedicated officers doing patrols on the streets right now, but people don't often see them because it's not just uniformed police officers, it's often people in plain clothes. So although the police budget is large, we need to continue to keep our community safe so that everybody can be safer in their community.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Botello, do you support the current level of funding for police?
I wouldn't advocate cutting the police budget. If anything, we need more money in that. You just need to look at the crime rate to see that go down. You can look at the daily incident reports about break-and enters, thefts, go to one of the core areas and see all the smashed windows. If anything, we need to increase the police budget. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, let's move from policing to the environment. I know it's a big stretch here, a big step, but we said Mother May I, and we're going to take this step. Climate emergencies have been declared by municipalities across our community. In cooperation with Sustainable Waterloo Region, our municipalities have committed to aggressive targets for greenhouse gas emissions. Mr. Botello, I will begin with you. As Mayor of Cambridge, how would you ensure that the city achieves those greenhouse gas reductions?
Well, one of the things we need to be concerned about is how we're creating our energy, because solar panels, they all have a limited lifespan and then can't be recycled. Same with wind turbines. So I think we should be advocating more innovative energy solutions, something like a Stirling engine, because if we're going to have hotter summers and colder winters, we can use an engine that works on a temperature gradient to our advantage. It's not going to solve all of our problems, but it's small things like that that are actually going to help us moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Ms. McGarry, how would you as mayor ensure that the city of Cambridge meets its greenhouse gas emission targets?
And that's an excellent question, and this is something that I hear from constituents all the time. They want to make sure that Cambridge is on track to meet its emissions reduction target. We've been working very closely with the 50 by 30 to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions by 50% by 2030. The city was also one of the first ones actually to declare a climate change emergency, and we've undertaken several steps in order to be able to get to those targets. One thing that we were able to do right away is ban the use of single-use plastics in all city facilities. Our new vehicles that we're purchasing for the city of Cambridge, for bylaw and for other services, are either hybrid or electric vehicles. We've been adding electric vehicle charging station throughout all of the new developments that we're having. There's now a couple in City Hall as well as our City Hall property. One of the best ways we can do to reduce it is reduce the number of gasoline-powered automobile trips and to decarbonize or electrify our transit system. So in the region of Waterloo, we have a program now where we're starting to look at and purchase electric buses, making sure that the charging stations are in place for that particular piece. We are also ensuring that we're educating our public on how to conserve. Conserving water is another thing that we've been educating our public on, and we can do some better conservation with our water. It's not just about watering lawns or our cars. It's how to capture water when you are running the tap, for instance, for a shower. Why not collect that water in a bucket and use that for watering your plants or making your coffee in the morning? There's a number of different tips that we can continue to promote in our city so that we can achieve our climate goals. And the last thing I'll say is that all of the buildings that are being built by the city has an eye to energy conservation as it's being built so that we can eventually move to net zero buildings.
Thank you very much for those responses. I'm going to shift from specifics to something a little bit more general, but I think it's important in the context of an election campaign when we like to talk about all of the great things that are happening in our communities. Ms. McGarry, I will start with you on this question, and it is generally, when you look ahead at the next 4 years, what would you consider to be the biggest challenge that the city of Cambridge faces?
I think the biggest challenge that we are facing in the city of Cambridge is all around us, and that is the lack of social services funding. In order to ensure that the mental health and addictions crisis that we face is finally getting enough funding for upper levels of government, and to ensure that people are getting the care that they need. And coupled with that is the homelessness issues. As I said before, this is a layered issue right now with the pandemic, loss of jobs, mental health crisis that we see. We need to ensure that we are getting the proper funding from our provincial government in particular to ensure that we have what we need in our community to be able to resolve these issues. However, with that challenge comes the opportunities, and every new job we create, every new business that we see coming into Cambridge provides extra revenue in order for us to be able to look at what we can do to help prevent some of these things. Some of the prevention dollars could be used for more free activities for children and youth, especially those that are at risk in our community, in order to help to keep them on track or to be identified early on if there's an issue within the family or a child that's not coping. And we need to come together and to ensure that our youth are well supported moving forward. That increases the productivity of our people, and that we need to continue to provide all of the supports that they need in that area. The other opportunity comes from knowing that as we are growing and prospering, having a job is one of the best ways to prevent homelessness. So we need to continue to attract good paying jobs and businesses to Cambridge, and I'm very happy to note that we have certainly done so even throughout the pandemic. So again, a complex issue, complex problem, but the best way that we can go forward is to ensure that we are getting more revenue in and promoting our city for tourists and sports tourism to ensure that we've got money coming into our businesses.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Botello, when it comes to challenges, what do you see as the largest challenge facing Cambridge over the next 4 years?
I think our biggest challenge is crime in general. I mean, you only have to look downtown to see all those smashed windows. And take an example like on Main Street, Elixir Bistro. How many times did he have his window broke before he left town? I think that if we don't get a handle on this, we're going to end up with depleted cores again. We're going to walk downtown Galt and we're going to lose all the shops. And I think we need to act on it now before it's too late. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Let me follow up a little bit on that last idea that you brought forward, Mr. Botello, and that is around downtown cores. How important are the 3 core areas of Galt, Preston, and Hespeler to the overall vibrancy of the city of Cambridge?
Well, I think they're very important. I mean, I spend a lot of time in the downtown core of Galt, and I know people do in Preston and Hespeler. I mean, Main Street's pretty busy when they have that blocked off. But I think those cores are very important for especially maintaining our identities as not only just people from Cambridge, but from Galt and Preston and Hespeler. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Ms. McGarry, when it comes to the cores and their importance in the overall vibrancy of the city, how do you see it?
I see that these are incredibly important. I remember the first time I came into Cambridge with my now husband and coming down Water Street and having the all of Galt sort of spread out underneath and watching the river, the church spires, and the incredible built stone architecture that we have in all 3 cores, and visiting the other 2 cores. We're so blessed to have rivers running through all 3. But in order to ensure we have core area revitalization, which is incredibly important to the people of Cambridge, and we've certainly noted that through the Cambridge Connected, Cambridge's strategic plan, this comes up to the top almost all the time. In order to regenerate and revitalize our core areas, which is going on right now, we do have new businesses coming in. We have supported a shut-off Main Street in Cambridge and also on the weekend in Hespeler in order to expand patios and bring life and vibrancy, music venues, dance musics downtown. But the core area revitalization won't happen unless you increase the residents living and working downtown. That's why the City of Cambridge, and myself included, have certainly seen how important it is to have density in our downtown core, more residents to support the local businesses. We have an excellent economic development team that has been working with area businesses on their digital strategy. We have expanded our film and our film location shoots significantly in the City of Cambridge, and so the film and television industry is adding to our economic benefits. So we're continuing to work throughout the city in order to ensure that core area is safer, that it has more residents and businesses going into it, and that we retain all of our architecture that's so important to the vibrancy of our city.
Thank you very much for those responses. Okay, we have arrived at the point of our forum where it is time for closing statements. I'll remind you that each of our candidates, Catherine McGarry and Cody Botello, will have 2 minutes each to provide their closing comments on this forum. Ms. McGarry, you will give us our first closing statement.
Thank you. We've come through the most challenging time in our community for 100 years, for the last 2.5 years of the pandemic. And what I'm incredibly proud of is how our people and businesses came together to look after each other and to then create and promote and provide equipment that was necessary and innovative solutions in order to help to keep people safe throughout the pandemic. And that's what really spoke to me. Cambridge is about its people. This is an incredibly special place, and I've been so proud to be the mayor and to promote our city and the incredible innovations and businesses here, not only to Ontario, but Canada and internationally. But we do need to protect our gains and to continue to grow our community with more jobs, housing, and prosperity, so we can help resolve some of the social issues that we see in our community and ensure that everybody has a place to grow and thrive. I've been advocating to the provincial and federal governments, and that is key, as I've had experience out of 3 out of 4 levels of government. I'm very proud of the fact that when I was a cabinet minister and MPP for Cambridge, I was able to attract almost $200 million in investment in new schools, businesses, infrastructure, cycling lanes, and so on. I've been called a competent, collaborative community builder. I have strong relationships with community leaders and agencies and other levels of government. So whether you're older or younger, completing your studies or opening a new business, starting a family, welcoming a grandchild, the Cambridge I envision is affordable, prosperous, and connected, and it has a place for you. We can build an exciting, thriving community together. Are you with me? Let's go, Cambridge. An exciting future awaits us all. On October 24th, please re-elect me as your mayor.
Thank you very much, Ms. McGarry, and to Mr. Botello for closing comments.
Thank you. If you want the same politics you've been getting for the years, then I'd encourage you to keep voting for the same people that have been in these positions of power. But if you're unhappy with the government and you want to make a change, then I would encourage you to vote for somebody new. I'd encourage you to vote for Cody. And I just wanted to end on saying, keep them high and tight. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our Cambridge Mayoral Candidates Forum featuring Catherine McGarry and Cody Botello, part of your local campaign coverage here on Rogers TV Cable 20. Unfortunately, not all of the candidates for running for mayor of Cambridge were able to join us on this forum, but I hope you did get some of the information you were looking for so that you could cast that informed ballot on October the 24th. That is absolutely the most important thing in all of this. You have come here to do some of your research, and we're grateful to you for joining us here on the local campaign for that. We also thank Citizens for Cambridge for being our partner on this forum, which featured Catherine McGarry and Cody Botello, 2 of the 4 people seeking your vote for mayor of Cambridge. My name is Mike Farwell. Thank you for joining us on the local campaign.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line, email us, or connect with us on social media.
Weekly in-depth coverage of the most local stories in Stratford, Perth, Brantford, Brant, Guelph, Wellington, and the Waterloo region. hyperlocal stories that matter to you and your community. All this and more on Your Region This Week. All local, all year round. New episodes every Friday at 7 p.m. right here on Rogers TV.
October 5th, 2014, my daughter was hit by a train. She was walking along the sides of the tracks, and it shattered her world.